Last night on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, 7 nights a week. We're right here at your service. Bob Pompeani at 412-575-2600. Andrew Filipponi up at 93.7 The Fan. PM team, a lot of football talk today, but late tonight we get what will be our number one story here this evening, and it is the subject of our GMC Sierra tweet of the night, which is the Pirates made a signing. And now they have the highest paid guy based on this, although it's not a multi-year deal, it's a one-year deal for a man most everyone out there knows, Aroldis Chapman, who can bring it at over 100 miles an hour. Last year with Texas, he helped them win a World Series championship. He was free to come here. I was a little surprised, Andrew, at the $10.5 million. I don't know how many competitive bids there were for him.
In Texas last year. Ask Bruce Bochy what he thinks of Aroldis Chapman. Bochy, one of the great managers in baseball history. He helped that Rangers team win a World Series. He was their eighth inning guy, their second most reliable bullpen arm. And going back to when the Pirates were good in 13, 14, and 15, their formula was to shorten games.
Right.
They had Grilly, they had Melanson, they had Watson, they had Wilson. They had guys out there in their bullpen that you could count on, and now you've got Bednar, you've got Chapman, you've got Holderman, Dari Moreta if he can get his act together. I mean, you've got Baroki, who actually pitched well in the second half of the season, a little under the radar guy. So they've, I think right now, accumulated with this move one of the better bullpens in the National League. And, yeah, I'm a fan of this, Bob. The one thing you got to think about, too, is it really a $10.5 million deal? Because if he pitches like he did last year when he resurrected his career, somebody will take him in July, and you'll only end up paying him $5 or $6 million.
But unless the Pirates are that team, and, you know, you can never have enough good lefties. You put Barecki out there with him, with Majinski and Holderman and Bednar, you're right. It's about what they can do in terms of getting a lead through 5 innings, and that falls on the offense and whether or not this offense is capable of doing that, because your back end is only as good as the team that front end provides offense. If they don't provide it, you're not going to have a lot of opportunities, although I do like it. So we'll see. Bottom line is $10.5 million. I don't know that there was a lot of bidding going on for him. Maybe there was, but if not, it seems like an awful lot of money to pay a guy who, to me, could be about 5 years too late in obtaining what I think the Pirates want to obtain. But if he's good, as you say, you can also double down and turn this into somebody who, again, flips at the deadline, brings in more talent.
Well, I'd always overpay on one-year deals. I mean, what's the harm? If the guy stinks, you're done with him, and he's not on your team next year. You don't have to. That mistake doesn't compound. It doesn't get exacerbated by having somebody who's got a albatross contract on your roster for years to come. I like that the Pirates made a move here. Bob Nutting did an article this weekend with the Post-Gazette talking about how he was begging Ben Cherington to do more. Well, they paid a lot more than they do for relief pitchers, and that's the way the game is headed. You know, Bob, a lot of these starting pitchers, the demand now is, hey, go through a lineup twice and then hit the showers. So you need arms to get you from really the 6th inning to the 9th inning to cover the last 4 innings of games. So many teams have started to spend more on the bullpen than their starting pitching because it's incredible how big these bullpens are, how bloated they are. So the guy still is a stud who throws really hard, and I like this move. I'm not going to – if the Pirates overspent – if they overspent for a guy, that's fantastic, because we're usually talking about the opposite.
No, I agree with that.
I'm not spending enough
on
players.
But what I'm saying is I would rather spend the money in more starting pitching. I think what they're pitching they got in the free agency, these are 32-year-old guys. I would rather made a play for a bigger player who has more of a resume and younger. And there were some available out there. I was looking at Lucas Giolito at the time before he, I thought that would be somebody the Pirates could overspend for and I'd be okay with. But I get what you're saying. And honestly, I don't have a problem with this. I'm glad they did it. I think it adds just another arm, a very capable arm, into a bullpen that is good and could be very good. We'll see how it goes. We got to take a break, Andrew. When we come back, we'll flip to some football. We'll talk about the Steelers going to interview an offensive coordinator candidate, but they better get moving because there are a lot of openings. And Cincinnati has one suddenly. We'll talk about that and more when we continue right here on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. Call us, share your opinions. All right, welcome back. We continue right here with the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani, Andrew Filipponi with you tonight at 412-575-2600. All right, the Steelers are ready to bring in a guy they want to interview, and he's a passing coordinator with Sean McVay, which is always a good thing, I think. Zach Robinson will be here some point. He's interviewing in a bunch of places. Chicago, from what I understand already. There will be one with New England. I wonder about Cincinnati now because Brian Callahan, their OC, reportedly, according to Adam Schefter, will be heading to Tennessee to be their head coach. So if I'm Zach Robinson, and if they're interested in me in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow returning, that might be an enticing thing for me, Pony.
Well, absolutely. Now, is he going to get to call plays there, though? You know, Zach Taylor can always take on that responsibility. These guys want to call their own number. They want to call the plays. They feel like that is what gets them the head coaching jobs and the big bucks. And this guy, I'm so happy that the Steelers are even kicking the tires on somebody like Robinson because it's so out of the box for them. Mike Tomlin said last week he wants someone with coordinator experience. Well, this guy doesn't have that. So I wonder about that. You know, this is not Mike's first preference. So is this more Art Rooney? Is this more Omar Khan? If it is, I'm still okay with that because you never know when you reach out to that McVay coaching tree if you're going to find someone who takes some of what McVay has done well and then adds their own little personal touch and flavor to it. And this guy played college football at a high level, even was on NFL preseason rosters. So he's got that side of things from a respect standpoint, too. I like it a lot, Bob. I would not have a problem whatsoever if they hired this guy because it would be a bold new era for the Steelers to do something like this. I'd be in favor of it.
You know, the thing that's going to be interesting, whoever gets this job is going to come in here and probably say, hey, I want my own staff with me, guys I believe in who can do what I want to do. That will be either a roadblock or a welcome addition, I think. And the Steeler coaching staff could expand. There are some of these staffs that are so big, and they can afford to do that, I think. But if that's the case, if that's a negotiable point, then, Andrew, I think that's something that will be part of this decision-making, whether or not they're willing to do that.
And how about Mason Rudolph? This is a guy that played college football. Robinson at Oklahoma State, played quarterback. Mason Rudolph got to be music to his ears to see Zach Robinson under consideration for this job because I would think Zach Robinson would be a big Mason Rudolph fan, having watched him in college. And, you know, I was under the impression that the only other team that at least showed some interest, Bob, in Rudolph last offseason was the Rams. There were some reports about that L.A. was a team that was looking for a backup quarterback that was at least interested in Mason. They ended up drafting Stetson Bennett from Georgia instead. But that was something that I had heard that he was on their radar. And, man, that would be crazy if they brought in an offensive coordinator who, in his own mind, preferred Mason Rudolph to Kenny Pickett.
Well, that would make a very interesting storyline. We'll see how it goes. This is just the early part of this offseason, and we'll see what the Steelers do. But that'll be number one job that they have to get figured out sooner rather than later. Let's go to our number one Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night, and that's Chuck in Uniontown. Hello, Chuck.
Thanks, fellas. Good to talk to you again. Who wins Sunday's games and why?
Who will win this coming Sunday's game?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, Chuck, for me, I like Baltimore. Even though I know what Kansas City has done. Maybe I'm getting a little stale on the Kansas City story. Maybe I am because it's every year. It's the same old thing. It's like the Patriots used to own that AFC. So perhaps that's it. I just like Baltimore at home. I think their defense is better.
I thought he played a very shaky game for San Francisco, and they were fortunate that Jordan Love made a couple of bigger errors in that game. But overall, I thought Love was the superior quarterback. And you're onto something potentially here because Jared Goff played college football up there in Northern California, so he's no stranger to those elements and that atmosphere. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a big number, Bob. 7-point spread for the Lions and 49ers after San Francisco was very lucky to beat the Packers last week.
Yeah, and I will say this is, average of a day for Brock Purdy. The last drive when he had to come up with plays, he did, and they went in and won the game. McCaffrey is just so good. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be a very interesting day of football. Back to the lines we go, and we have Bill in Bethel Park. Bill, welcome to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Good. What's up, man?
Hey, why would we sign a closer when we can't be ahead in the game to close the game? If you're down 6-2, what good is a $10 million closer?
They're hoping, as Andrew said, to shorten the game, and he's not a closer anymore per se. I mean, that's Bednar's job. He can be somebody in the 8th inning on days that Bednar can't go, or there's a lefty matchup in the 9th. I can see that happening. But the key is getting leads and taking it to the middle of the game, and that's the trend that it's going. So, I don't see him getting the lion's share of the business. It's still going to be David Bednar.
Yeah, but David Bednar last year, we saw how taxed he was, Bob, at different points of the season. I thought he started to break down last year. His first couple of months were pretty much perfect, and then he had a back problem, overusage. A lot of stress went into that last year with him. So to have someone more reliable setting up for him, maybe some games there's lefties in the 9th inning, and you want Chapman to actually get the save, Bob. I'd have no problem with that. If you looked at the next 3 hitters and thought, well, actually Chapman matches up better against these guys, I think that managers should think the team should be more flexible when it comes to that. Look, starting pitchers are really expensive, even mediocre ones. You brought up Giolito. He really had a tough time in a couple different places last year. He still got the big payday. So I think that's what the Pirates are trying to exploit, obviously. Trying to find value in things. They don't want to break the bank on guys. I'm not making excuses for them. But I think in this case, based on how Chapman pitched in the second half of last season, I like the amount of money they paid for him, and I like what he brings to their team. They still do need more starting pitching, though. There's no question about it. That might require a trade, Bob, where you give up a couple prospects to get a major league arm in here to help you right now.
I wouldn't rule that out, but they also would love to see some of these guys develop at a quicker rate than have in their own system. And it would start with Paul Skeens. They need to get him up here as soon as possible.
Well, how about Contreras? He was a disaster last year, Bob.
I don't know what to think about him. That's my problem now. I came away at the beginning of the season thinking he was going to be one of their starting 5. In fact, maybe a high leverage guy at 2 or 3, and now I don't know what he is. So he's got to bounce back. Let's go back to the lines. We have Tom in Wexford. Tom, go right ahead, sir.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
I
Thanks.
just wanted to throw something out there. I'm watching these AFC playoff games, and I'm like in amazement at how good these quarterbacks are in the AFC anymore. And if Tomlin thinks he's going into next year with Mr. Hamburger Helper and Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, then we're going to have a long
Well,
season.
I don't. That room is not yet defined. I don't know what they're going to do, and it starts with Rudolph and what he expects from them if he's going to stay here, and if not, what they do after that. And I will say this: if you bring in a Zach Robinson, the one thing that Kenny Pickett needs is somebody who has a scheme that would help his talents. They waited maybe too long for that to happen, and now they're in this situation. I think it was also disappointing that at the end of the season he was not healthy enough to see what he could have done without Matt Canada, Pony.
Well, but then he got healthy enough and they didn't want to see it, Bob, because of how well Mason Rudolph played, and I had no issue with that because Rudolph did get hot in those games against Cincinnati and Seattle and won the game in bad weather in Baltimore. Bob, what did you make of what Ron wrote this weekend about potentially trading T.J. Watt? Did you think he had any good points there?
First of all, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, I mean, you should. I think what he said was you should listen. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone should listen to everything. You never know what you're going to come up with. But it would take an awfully big windfall for me.
Well, what's big?
So you brought up T.J. Watt. I wouldn't do it, number one. But if I got an offer that would include 2 number ones and a current player who could help me, I might consider it. You?
Yeah, Bob, I probably wouldn't do it, even for 2 ones, because he's going to be 30 years old this season. I still think there's 4 or 5 all-pro defensive player of the year type seasons in him. And even though I like what Omar Khan, Andy Weidel, and Tomlin have done together in the last draft, I don't think I could live with myself if I traded him for unknown commodities. I really don't. Unless I was convinced one of those guys was my answer at quarterback. And how could you do that? You wouldn't even know where the picks were necessarily if you traded for future picks.
Absolutely true. But it makes me wonder about this year, since we're talking about it. When they go into the draft, and I'm not suggesting they're going to take a quarterback in the first round. However, if somebody is available in the first round who you really like, and you're not sure exactly what you're getting here because, as Mike Tomlin said, he thinks this is a huge year for Kenny Pickett, and he emphasized that word. That tells me that they better get an answer. If not, would you take somebody in the first round, a quarterback who drops in that position?
I would consider it, sure. I mean, the guys outside of the top two don't really don't really make me excited. But hey, you never know, Bob. Look at this year. He was the number 2 pick, though.
Yeah. All right, Bodie, we're out of time. We do this every night.
Bob.
I got to stop talking quicker. Good night.